Okay, that's all, whatever.
We were going to try and do something cool, it didn't work out.
Never
Sad
does.
fact of trying to do live demos. So my name is Chuck Thornsberg, I'm a detective out in Helotes. I've been involved in law enforcement a little over 8 years now. My background is actually in technology, network security, computer protection, hacking from way back in the day. You can see way back there from like 1981 and 1983, that's how far back I go. Back when we used things like this for computer storage.
And
So
you still have them.
legit hacking, because they're legit hacking programs that run. You got to keep those. After the presentation, students will be able to distinguish between the dark web, deep web, and surface web traffic. The student will be able to define the TOR acronym, T-O-R, and students will be able to classify internet applications based upon their usage between dark web, deep web, or surface web usage. Just a little bit of history of the internet. 1960s, 70s, ARPA, Advanced Research Project Agency, so that's a government agency, was trying to figure out how do we interconnect different computer networks that we've built. And so that's how the term internet, or internetworking these different, that's how that began. In 1983, ARPA adopted the TCP/IP transmission protocol that was kind of foundational. That's the addressing scheme that's still actually in use today. And then in 1990, Tim Berners-Lee actually released a series of standards, hyperlinking, how webs would display, and so that's technically, he's the father of the World Wide Web, not Al Gore. So, one of the foundational questions we have is how big is the internet? We like to use the iceberg because it's difficult, and a lot of this is estimation. It's estimated that total networking capacity of the internet right now is 8.3 zettabytes. And so if you don't know what a zettabyte is, that is 2 to the 70th power, or 1 followed by 21 zeros of bytes. That's a lot. That's 1 billion terabytes. So we probably all have this, right? This is a 2 terabyte portable hard drive. If we were to try and store all of that information on these and stack them up, it would be 315 million miles high. So that's going back and forth to Mars about 5 times. It's a lot of information. And just to talk about how much things have changed in the last 30 years, this, compared to our 2 terabyte, it's 150,000 of these disks are what this device holds. So it's a pretty big difference. Only about 4% of internet websites and documents are visible, and we refer to that as the surface web. So that's when you Google something or use Bing or Reddit, Yahoo, any of those search engines, you're really only able to see about 4% of the information that's available. There's a lot of reasons for that. We wouldn't want our medical records, our bank records, we wouldn't want those to be searchable by the average person. And so we move into what's called the deep web. And that's basically your password-protected sites, password-protected networks. The government runs a few. NIPRNet, SIPRNet is Secret Internet Protocol. GovNet is a hybrid between private networks and government networks that we're using now for a lot of information sharing. And then when we talk about VPNs or virtual private networks, those would also be part of the deep web. And it's kind of a misnomer when people think about surface web, deep web versus dark web. There's really only one internet. There's one network. They're all using the same wires, the same satellites, the same underground cables to transfer the information. It's simply the ability to access that information, and that's what changes our classifications. On the very bottom, that would be our dark web, and that's where we get into political dissidents, drug trafficking, child pornography, kind of the icky parts that people talk about. What segments or separates off the dark web from basically the rest of internet traffic is that the way that the information is routed. and protect it. And so the dark web is, for the most part, run under the Onion router. So that's your Tor acronym, T-O-R, the Onion router. And it's basically an anonymizing and encrypting private relay network. And to show you an example of that, anybody familiar with encryption or any of those things? Everybody's kind of non-tech. So if this is sort of a very simple map. That's what I was hoping to be able to show you on my laptop. It didn't work out. But so if we have a Tor user who says, hey, I'm going to open up the Tor browser, it creates a virtual separate network than your normal internet traffic. And the way that it routes your traffic is designed to protect you from any outside interference. So each node that your traffic goes through, it's encrypted from that point to point and encapsulated so that the only person who knows who this user is this node. And it's anonymous. You'll come up with some kind of string like this. Is how they identify a user. It's anonymous from the user to the first node, then it's encrypted a second time, transferred to the second node in the chain. The second person only knows this machine and this machine. So by the time you get to the second node, no one knows what that original request was, what they're looking for, what they're trying to accomplish. Forward it to a second node, same thing. That third node only knows about this machine and about this machine. It'll route through generally 4 or 5 of those nodes and then go through what's called an exit node where it goes out into the main internet. And so at that point, it's no longer encrypted, it's no longer encapsulated, and you can access different sites. The Tor sites, it's pretty easy to pick them out. We're used to .com, .net, .org. So on a Tor sites are all .onion. Back to that, the Onion router. So if you were ever to see that listed somewhere else as a site, generally randomized, and then .onion, you know that that's only going to be accessible using that Tor browser. The reason that criminal types like this, if I were to attack, say, USAA's computer network, and I'm going through the Tor network to do that, when they try and trace back, hey, where is this traffic coming from, they go back to this machine, they can go no further. They cannot trace back through the Tor network because this machine has no idea it originated from the user back there. This is why criminal types like to use it. And we associate with criminal types, but there were legitimate, initially it's a free and open source project, and it has a very legitimate usage. If you lived in Iraq and you wanted to report on dissident activity that's going on, you can't just log on to your Yahoo email and start sending off video of something that happened. And so there actually is a pretty good use for the Tor network. But like anything else, it can be used for evil as well, I guess. There's some very specific applications that people use on the dark web. They're all designed to be anonymizing and encrypting. So you can't tell who the user actually is, and you have no idea what the content would be of that messaging. So obviously the Tor browser was one of the, we talked about being able to access websites, but there's also a Tor chat that is available that allows point-to-point communications where you can direct message another person, totally encrypted from endpoint to endpoint, and uses that Tor relay network, so it's even possible to track back if you were to try and do a trace route and go backwards. There's also an Onion Mail, or an Onion Mail service that kind of leverages the Tor relays network and that encryption and anonymity with PGP encryption, which is a higher level of encryption for the actual messages. Just kind of a side note, so the Tor browser does not have to be installed on a computer to work. You could keep. It's got a browser bundle. You could carry it around on a flash drive. You could literally plug into any machine and be able to access the Tor network, regardless of the network settings there. I didn't really want to do it with the ACOG's networks here, but which is why I was going to use my laptop. But theoretically you could. And so you could, from anywhere you wanted, be able to anonymously surf, anonymously send message, and encrypted messages.
So you can go to an internet cafe somewhere and throw your thumb drive in.
Exactly. You could go to Starbucks, you could go anywhere, plug into somebody else's machine, a library, plug in, and you're on the Tor network. So you are literally on the dark web. Navigation is a little different, as mentioned before. Everything's a .onion for the Tor. There are some websites that kind of will traverse a little bit on the surface web and also in the deep and dark web. Duckduckgo is one, if you've never heard of it. They're, unlike Google, they don't record everything that you're searching for. They're not selling your, they're subscription based, and they help manage privacy. They run and have the ability to transfer you and link you straight over to onion sites. Torch is another one, but both Torch and Grams are only available using the Tor browser. You have to be on the darknet to be able to actually use those two search engines. But they will allow you to link to those internet marketplace sites, basically. Probably you've seen that Experian and some others, hey, is your information at risk, and we're going to do a dark web search. We're going to, we can tell you whether or not your information is on the dark web. 100% false, because that's not the way that works. I wish I could pull up my laptop for you. Each one of those marketplaces, you have to have a user account to sign in, and if you want to check and see if your credit card information happened to be in that batch, you literally would have to buy all of the numbers. And there are millions and millions of credit card numbers out there for sale right now. So there's really no way to know that. Now, what they can do is check and see if you were part of a previously released dump. Basically, once it no longer has monetary value, cyber criminals will just dump them out onto the internet they'll call them data dumps. They'll just push it all out there and say, look, these are all the things that we stole or we recovered or we got from somewhere else. So in summary, we can kind of classify the internet basically into 3 domains. So the surface web, which is about 4% of what you actually, of the total traffic is out there. The deep web, which would be our VPNs, our anonymous things. And then of course the dark web. Accessing the dark web, you have to have the Onion router software or the Tor browser. And then again, the Onion router is anonymizing and encrypting a private relay network. Questions?
Yeah, I got a question. So it's an estimation that there's approximately 4% that's regularly searchable by users.
Right.
Is there a educated guess, an estimate to specifically dark web content?
There's really not, because it's not indexable and it doesn't use traditional naming conventions like Google.com don't really work. It's starting to be applied, and so you'll have, there may be 50 sublinking sites, basically, that'll say you can pull, if you were to search now for dark web links or dark web onion sites, you'll get maybe 10 or 12, but a different person will have indexed another 10 or 15 other ones. And they're very easy to throw up. You can put up a website, and it's anonymizing. You hook into the network and say, I want to spin up a site, basically, and it's that easy. So the sites will come up and down. People will post up if they have something to sell, nefarious, and then they'll take it down afterwards. And so it's very difficult to index.
What is your web browser of choice? Do you recommend?
What is mine of choice? I personally use Chrome with a bunch of extensions on it. It's safer-ish. When I'm on the dark web, I use Tor.
For a standard user, what would you recommend Chrome?
Chrome is fairly good. They do a good job of in the industry, you call it sandboxing. So protecting, if the browser gets compromised, it's not not affecting your underlying operating system.
I got a question. Is the dark web 100% for nefarious and criminal purposes, or is there any legitimate reason that somebody would get on the dark web?
Sorry, I'm out of time. No, there are. So think of it here. We believe that we should have access to everything, with the exception of child porn and things like that. But informationally, we think we should have access to anything. Not that. So back in the 80s, if you think about when these were being developed, does anybody remember the Anarchist Cookbook?
I had that.
You
And
have-
Poor Man's Games.
That was
the only way you could get that.
It was a
crazy
banned
stuff.
book. You're not allowed to have this. People started putting it on the internet when it first came up, and it was like, you can't do that. You can't post that. You can't post, more recently, you can't post 3D printer schematics for gun parts. You can't post that on the internet. That was really what Tor was kind of designed around. Is we're going to allow you to put content that you want to put out there. No one can tell you no, because they can't find your servers to shut you down. No one knows who's coming to your site. So we can all say, we don't know who accessed it. And so, yeah, outside of our country, huge reason for it. I mean, back if you're in the Middle East, or if you're down in Venezuela, I don't think you want to be posting videos about what's really going on right now. So, thank you.
I should have turned that off before I talked about my anarchist cookbook, which I'll do that now.